Welcome to Uncovered. I'm Anthony Davis. He's Ron Filipkowski. And together we uncover the MAGA propaganda that is not covered by the mainstream and corporate media. Ron, we have so much to talk about. America is in an unprecedented position. We have the constitutional crisis, as we know, that is kind of looming. We discussed a little bit last week. But now we also have Donald Trump repositioning America on the side of the Kremlin rather than on the side of a sovereign nation and our European allies in with Ukraine. Let's start with that. Where do we go?
Well, I really think the origin of this is that he has no idea how to end this conflict. And he spent 2 years during the campaign, every interview, every speech, saying he could end it easily in 24 hours. One meeting, he would have sit down first day with Zelensky, he'd sit down with Putin, knock their heads together, and he'd have it done, art of the deal, right? So then he takes office, and reporters start asking him, what happened? What about this 20? When are you going to meet? And he really has no idea. He has no plan, because when they asked him during the campaign, well, how are you going to do that? He would never answer. He said, I can't tell you. I can't give it away. It's a secret, So what we know is he has no plan. So this is his only plan. After like 3 weeks, he's sort of figured out his plan is what Putin wants is his plan. Putin has demanded like elections. Why? So he can manipulate them and put one of his puppets in who will give away the country, and cause chaos. Putin wants territory. He wants no NATO, basically every single thing that Putin wanted. And Trump added to that, you have to sign over 50% of your economy to the United States in perpetuity. And whoever, not only did he ask him to sign over 50% of their natural resources to the United States, he put a clause there. I read the agreement that the U.S. can license that out to third parties. So technically, we could license mineral rights to a Russian company to go into Ukraine. I mean, who's gonna agree to that? So he has no plan. He knows that that's not gonna work. He doesn't even invite Zelensky to the meeting. So now what does he do? I mean, Zelensky complained, like, what is this? You're the only thing that you didn't even invite us to Saudi Arabia to meet, and you're only coming at me with Russian talking points. So he complained for the first time. Zelensky complained. He's been very careful not to complain, but for the first time he got frustrated, and Trump immediately went postal on him on his way to the golf course. By the way, right as he's about to step into his golf cart, he posts a tweet saying Zelensky's a dictator and posting a bunch of Putin's talking points.
It's very sad. I mean, I just think about all the people that have given their lives, the Ukrainians who have given their lives in the theater of war. And Donald Trump basically has now showed up and said that it's Ukraine that started this war, that they shouldn't have started it, and Biden should have stopped it. And, just denying that this has anything to do with him, when, of course, this has everything to do with him. And political scientists will walk back the start of the Ukraine war direct to the door of Donald Trump's first tenure in the White House. Let's take a look at Trump blaming Zelensky.
I think I have the power to end this war, and I think it's going very well. But today I heard, we weren't invited. Well, you've been there for 3 years. You should have ended it 3 years. You should have never started it. You could have made a deal.
Yeah, I mean, no wonder Zelensky's like...
How is Zelensky going to end it?
Right.
Russia wanted to conquer the country and kill him. That was their goal. And then it ground down to a stalemate. Putin has never been interested in peace talks under any circumstances. So how is Zelensky supposed, it's blaming the victim. It's like saying, how can you should have stopped the person from raping you. Yeah. That's basically what he's saying.
Yeah. I want to play this other clip. It goes into a little bit more detail. Trump clearly doesn't know what's going on, doesn't care what's going on. He just wants to be friends with Putin. He wants to be one of the great dictators. He doesn't care that, there'll be territory annexed to Russia as part of this deal. Remember, the Ukrainians have not been invited to the talks. It's the Saudis, it's the Russians, and it's the Americans, but no sign of inviting Zelensky. And Trump does this kind of dance when he's on the podium to talk around all of these facts. But ultimately, he's just done with it. He just does not care. He was very happy being on the golf course, celebrating the fact that he managed to evade the criminal prosecutions himself. Let's take a look.
Thank you. Yes.
We're hearing that Russia wants to force Ukraine to hold new elections in order to sign any kind of a peace deal. Is that something that the U.S. would ever support?
Well, we have a situation where we haven't had elections in Ukraine, where we have martial law, essentially martial law in Ukraine, where the leader in Ukraine, I hate to say it, but he's down at 4% approval rating, and where a country has been blown to smithereens. You got most of the cities are laying on their sides. The buildings are collapsed. It looks like a massive demolition site. So many of the cities. They haven't done it in Kiev because I guess they don't want to shoot too many rockets in there. They've done it 20%, but they haven't done it 100%. If they wanted to do it 100%, it would probably happen very quickly. But you have cities that are absolutely decimated. And yeah, I would say that, when they want a seat at the table, you could say the people wouldn't the people of Ukraine have to say, it's been a long time since we've had an election. That's not a Russia thing. That's something coming from me and coming from many other countries also. Ukraine is being just wiped out. Look at what's happening to the cities. There are cities, there's not even a building standing. It's a massive, you talk about Gaza. It's literally, these cities look like Gaza.
Yeah. Well, let's start with the lies from the beginning of what he said there. He's actually spouting Russian propaganda. That's what he's saying. So, the 4% approval rating for Zelensky, that is something that the Russians say. The reality is Zelensky's approval rating last week was around 63%, dropped down this week to around 57%. But the reality is that most Ukrainians support Volodymyr Zelensky, and you only have to look at this guy to see how he has held the line and has given the level of support that you need from a leader to maintain morale in a country that otherwise, if Trump was the leader, would have been devastated by now.
Every single thing he said is what the Russian delegation said to Marco Rubio in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
We want election. This is their demands. And he just rattled off their demands as his positions. The 4% talk, that's a lie. He's talking about they could level Kyiv. What is he talking about? They have launched thousands of missiles and artillery shells when they were close enough at the capital. It is only because of the bravery and the weapon systems and the missile defense systems that it hasn't been damaged as much as what he claims. Not because the Russians are nice. What he's saying is they could have destroyed Kyiv, but they chose not to because it's such a historic city. Give me a break. Are you serious? This is the American president?
Do you think he got a one-pager?
Putin chose not to destroy Kyiv because he cares about what, the architecture? Yeah. This is a complete fool. And what else did he say in there? There was multiple lies in there. The 4% of the election. Oh, that this is not Putin's talking points. These are mine. Donald Trump, before he just made that statement, I've listened to every word he's said about Ukraine. He has never called for elections. Never. The first time he called for elections was the day after his Secretary of State met with the Russians, because that's what they said they wanted. He's a lying clown. And the problem is, when he throws his little temper tantrum and he posts his little True Social thing this morning, saying Zelensky's a dictator and all that, and then he goes to play golf, this sets off a firestorm around Europe. I mean, they're having like emergency meetings in Europe talking about how they're going to what they're going to have to do to defend themselves without the United States. I mean, the European, the EU Defense Council made a statement. Members of the EU Parliament, NATO, he just throws he throws the world into chaos, and he seems to enjoy it. And the other problem is the reaction of Republican senators, because if you had literally like 20 Republican senators who all know that these are lies, there's at least 20 Republican senators or more who strongly back Ukraine, but they will not say anything. I mean, they were all asked about it today, and all they said was, well, I don't agree with what he said, but not one would criticize him. Not one.
John Kennedy said something that was...
Yeah, he was the closest.
But just not close enough. Another of the lies that Trump said there was saying, well, he's brought about martial law.
Yeah, martial law.
Well, there has to be a form of martial law when your city is under attack, when your country is under attack, to protect citizens from being bombed in the streets. So again, just twisting the reality because he has no knowledge. I presume that Marco Rubio had been told, look, just don't bother me with the detail. Just fax me a one-pager with bullets. I bet that's what Trump said. Yeah. And Trump gets this fax on old fax paper, I can imagine it, and he's looking at it, and he's just basically, he doesn't really think about whether these points are Russian points or American points or Ukrainian points. They're just the points. Well, of course, it's going to be the demands of the Russians that he got sent. So that's why he's repeating it, because that's all that he has the energy to bother reading.
But, the motivation, I think it goes back to he's failing at this. He's falling on his face. When he promised success, he promised his supporters that he would end this war, and he can't do it. He doesn't know how to do it, and his feckless Secretary of State doesn't know how to do it. Yes. And his NSA, who's a former dope cultist congressman from Florida, doesn't know how to end it. His special envoy, Kellogg, is a fool. They have no one on their team who has a path to end this war. So now what he's going to do, he's not going to take responsibility himself. He's not going to blame Vladimir Putin. He's going to blame Zelensky, and he's going to blame Ukraine. He's going to blame the victims, because he has to blame someone else for his failures all the time. And in this case, it's going to be Zelensky. It's going to be Biden. It's going to be Europe. It's going to be everyone else but him.
Well, he did exactly the same thing about inflation yesterday. When the inflation news came out about it going up, he said, I've only been in the job for 2.5 weeks. How can it have anything to do with me? And it's like, well, A, you haven't been in the job 2.5 weeks. You've actually been in the job over a month. But secondly, it has everything to do with you. It's like when he was asked, do you take any responsibility for the COVID deaths? I take no responsibility at all. It's like blaming Biden for the withdrawal of Afghanistan when it was his plan. This is the theme with this guy. I want to read the social media post, the Truth Social post that he put out today, which has completely caused, as you say, Europeans to kind of run around like, chickens without their heads in a farmyard. This is quite insane. He says, think of it. A modestly successful comedian, Volodymyr Zelensky, talked the United States of America into spending $350 billion to go into a war that couldn't be won, that never had to start, but a war that he, without the US and Trump, will never be able to settle. The United States has spent $200 billion more than Europe, and Europe's money is guaranteed, while the United States will get nothing back. Why didn't sleepy Joe Biden demand equalization? In that this war is far more important to Europe than it is to us. We have a big, beautiful ocean of separation. On top of this, Zelensky admits that half of the money we sent him is missing. He refuses to have elections, is very low in Ukrainian polls, and the only thing he was good at was playing Biden like a fiddle. A dictator without elections, Zelensky better move fast, or he is not going to have a country left. In the meantime, we are successfully negotiating to end the war with Russia, something all admit only Trump and the Trump administration can do. Biden never tried, Europe has failed to bring peace, and Zelensky probably wants to keep the gravy train going. I love Ukraine, but Zelensky has done a terrible job. His country is shattered, and millions have unnecessarily died, and so it continues, writes the President of the United States.
Put that back up, because I just want to like run through real quick the lots.
Sure.
Okay. First of all, we didn't spend $350 billion. Okay.
Yeah.
We spent less than that.
Yeah.
And that's not money we sent there. That's money we spent in the U.S., where we were selling them our old.
We were replenishing our weapons. That's right. Yeah.
Right. Europe has spent more than us, a little bit more than we have. Not a huge amount, but they have spent more. So that's also a lie.
Right.
So 200 billion more than Europe is a lie.
Yep.
Let's see. What are we going down now? Big, beautiful ocean separating us. So we're safe here, right?
Yep.
He thinks it's like 1873. Okay, Russia has a massive fleet of nuclear submarines with nuclear missiles on them that they can park right off our coast. That big, beautiful ocean is not going to save us like it did in the War of 1812. Okay, it's not going to work.
Well, the submarines are already there. I mean, maybe he doesn't realize this.
Yeah, I mean, they are, and intercontinental ballistic missiles. What the hell is the ocean? How's the ocean going to save us? The world is so interconnected. This isn't the 17th century.
Yeah.
What else? Let's see. Oh, refuses to have election. No, okay, that's not true either. He had an election. He was democratically elected. There is no big groundswell in Ukraine for there to be elections during this invasion. Are you gonna stop and have polls, and you're gonna campaign in the middle of your country being invaded? There's no country on earth that is going to hold an election while there is a foreign power occupying their country. No country is ever going to do that. No country ever has. Yeah, we had elections during the Civil War, but that was after the Confederacy. That was after Gettysburg. That was after Vicksburg, when the Confederacy was on its knees and they weren't occupying any Union territory. So, I mean, it's just, you just go through it. The whole thing is lies, and it all comes straight from the Russians. And it's so sad. I've been telling Europe for a few months. I mean, I keep posting it. I have a lot of Europeans that follow me. I have a lot of Ukrainians that follow me. And I just keep telling them, you are on your own. And the sooner you figure that out, and I will say, the Europeans, they're just simply, I know this isn't their thing, but they're going to have to spend more money on defense. That's just, they're just going to have to. Otherwise, they're not going to have a defense, because the U.S. is not going to be there for them over the next 4 years. And Vladimir Putin knows that.
I fear that it will go beyond 4 years, Ron. I think that as it stands, without any democratic leadership, and with the Republicans suppressing the vote as much as they've worked out how to play the system in the Electoral College now, that I doubt a Democrat will be able to win unless there is a drastic shift, or we can make people en masse understand the importance of their vote, to either stop people from failing to show up at the polls, but also that voter suppression that prevents so many people from voting. I mean, that's my fear. And, people do talk about, oh, well, there's only 2 years to the midterms, or there's only 4 years till Trump can't run again. He is 100% going to alter the Constitution to give himself another term. He's all of your worst instincts, this guy kind of goes for. Once he knows that there's talk of like, oh, they're a bit worried that maybe he'll do that, that's when he gets excited and he's like, right, let's amend the Constitution. This is who we're dealing with. The guy can only think like a criminal. He doesn't have a conscience or any respect for the Constitution or for the people of the nation. How do we get here? I don't know how we got here, but it doesn't bode well for the people of Ukraine, doesn't bode well for the people of Europe, and it certainly doesn't bode well for the citizens of America. One thing I would say, though, about the Europeans...
by the way, Zelensky made a very good suggestion, which is it's probably time to create a European army, European military.
Yes.
And not just because if the United States controls the NATO command structure and they pull the rug out from under you, where does that leave you if you're Europe? You know, we have what, 32 different little militaries, you know. I mean, UK is pretty big, but Germany's, you know, decent, but
yeah,
you know, I mean, they're going to have to come up with a NATO-like military alliance that doesn't involve the US.
But the problem is, once you create an army like that, it's kind of ripe for going to war.
Sure.
You know, currently when there isn't an army, it's like,
not a great, it's not, I mean, it's not an ideal solution, but I don't know what else. You know, I think that the Europeans have always felt like, and look, it's good for the United States too. I'm not somebody who's saying like we have been protecting Europe. I mean, I know that's the MAGA party line. I don't agree with that. I think Europe and the United States have protected each other with collective security. And, you know, but when you pull out, you know, when you pull the United States out of that, the fact of the matter is, yes, the European individual countries' militaries are not that strong. And so they're going to have to raise defense spending. I don't really see any other option for them.
Sweden and Denmark are already in talks about creating some kind of protection for Greenland, because they fear that that's going to kick off, and I have no doubt that it will. It's like whenever a story that Trump peddles gets traction in the media, that's when he kind of runs with it. You know, it's like when he thought of Space Force randomly, because like two words came out of his mouth as one, and suddenly billions of dollars are spent stealing the Star Trek logo and turning it into a sector of the services. It's was it John Mulaney, the comedian, was talking about a horse in a hospital. Having Trump as the leader is like letting a horse loose in a hospital, and you never know which way it's going to go and how insane it is.
Well, and that's that. And I agree. Like, he feeds off the negative attention. Like, the more people get upset about something he does, it almost seems like the more he likes it.
Correct.
But the solution is not. I hear the people say in response to that, well, then the solution is to ignore him. Don't give him what he wants. Don't get upset. And it's like, that's not a solution either. You know, when you give the horse running around the hospital analogy, you can't ignore the horse running around the hospital.
Right.
You know, you got to put it down. And so, you know, and I'm not suggesting an assassination here. I'm just saying, you know, like you have to stop it. You have to do something to fight back. So yeah, I mean, you know, yes, he thrives on it. He thrives on the chaos. He loves creating the chaos. And the reality is, the most effective people to like stop him are Republicans in Congress who know better.
Well, they're the only people that can stop him, really.
And just wonder, will they? I mean, they're grumbling, they're griping, they're complaining. I've chronicled their complaints over the last few weeks.
Yes.
But will they actually like step up? I mean, when they criticize him, they don't even use his name. And I keep shaming them on this. It's like, why won't you say his name? They'll say, I don't agree with this, and this, but they will never say his name. Like, they won't say, I don't agree with Trump about this. They're afraid. And that's just, it's disheartening because there's they control the two chambers. And if they won't speak up, you know, if
you can't say the name of the leader in vain, that is authoritarianism.
Yeah.
If you are frightened to call it out, it's like referring to the Führer in the 1930s as anything other than perfect. That is what we have here now. And it's not like those are citizens. Those are representatives. Those are people who have been elected to serve the people. And they are terrifying.
What they're doing is like, they're saying like, I don't agree with these policies. I don't agree with what is happening, without saying like, who is causing it to happen.
Right.
It's all, you know, Republicans, they always complain about, there was a long time where media would say if there was a car crash involving an SUV, because there was a lot of anti-SUV stuff back in the day.
Yeah.
And Republicans would always complain when the headlines would say SUV crashed into, because they would say it's not the SUV, you know, it's the driver.
It's the driver.
Right? And it kind of reminds me of that right now, where they're like blaming the SUV. I don't like that this is happening. I don't like that, but they will never talk about who's driving the SUV. You know?
Those two speeches last week, the Pete Hegseth speech at the NATO summit, and then the J.D. Vance speech at the Munich Security Conference, they put the cat amongst the pigeons. I mean, European leaders are very smart, highly intelligent, well-educated, well-traveled. They really understand right from wrong, and they are critical thinkers, and they know their history. And they're poles ahead of the likes of these made-for-TV people, the Hegseths and the Donald Trump. And I mean, I saw that head of the Munich Security Conference start to cry when he was speaking about this new position that America was taking when J.D. Vance said, we are not going to protect the United States anymore. He actually burst into tears on the podium and had to step off and get a hug from someone in the front row. That's how serious this is, Ron.
Yeah, the Hegseth speech was a disaster, and the worst part about it was he was reading it like it wasn't off the cuff. It was so bad and so dumb. I mean, he basically just walked in there and gave away every bit of leverage that we had right from jump before anything even started. He's saying we're going to give Russia this, and this, and it's like, okay, well, you pretty much just agreed to give them everything they wanted. And then they had to come and walk some of that back. And then they asked Trump about it. And Trump's like, I didn't even hear what he said. I mean, that's becoming a pattern too, is that, you know, and I think Trump's telling the truth there. I don't think he's lying. He keeps getting asked about things that are happening overseas with his people or with Musk here domestically. And he doesn't know what's going on. He has no clue because he's on the golf course every day. So he had no idea about what Hegseth said, and I believe him about that. Yeah. And then the Vance speech was even worse because Hegseth's speech was just duncery. It was just stupidity because he's a moron. But the Vance speech was very calculated. He went in there and he knew what he had a choice. He could have gone over there and given a speech to them. And keep in mind, this was the Munich Security Conference to deal with foreign threats. That was the purpose of the conference. It wasn't an economic or it wasn't about democracy. It was about security. And he decided to make his speech not about security, but a critique of European domestic policy. You know, their speech laws, their election law, all of this stuff, to go into Germany, Munich of all places, right, and criticize the Germans for how they run their democracy. Then he proceeded to leave that speech and meet with the AfD leader. So basically taking the side of the far-right AfD party.
Well, he wouldn't meet with the allies. He would refuse to meet with the allies.
And would not even meet with the current PM or chancellor. Correct. Wouldn't meet with the current chancellor and wouldn't meet with the favorite, the Christian Democratic leader who's probably going to be the next chancellor. Wouldn't meet with him either. But he met with the AfD person. Now, interesting thing is, I saw some polling and read some stuff out of Germany.
I know what you're about to say. This is kind of interesting, isn't it?
There's so much anti-American sentiment right now inside Germany because of Trump and Hegseth and all this.
And Musk, remember, who's been platforming the AfD,
that this endorsement actually could hurt them. I hope it does. I don't pretend to know German politics.
It's causing the AfD's polling to tank because
I hope those polls are accurate.
Right. Because of Elon Musk. And Olaf Scholz never got a look in. And, you know, these are highly respected politicians, really smart people. And I just feel so sad for all of us who have historic families who have, you know, come to America as refugees, escaping Nazis, and the whole history completely ignored. In fact, I think, didn't J.D. Vance at the top of his speech make a kind of caveat apology about the terrorist attack in Munich and say something about, I'm sorry about what happened here, but anyway, let's talk about this.
I didn't hear that. No, I
yeah.
didn't hear that.
And I was like, that is a really kind of low,
about the refugee running the car into the
a kind of a low bar effort.
That's something he could not resist saying. Yeah. So that doesn't surprise me.
Remember that J.D. Vance is getting his diktat, not from Trump, but he answers to the tech oligarchs.
Yes.
To that group,
yes.
The Peter Thiel group, who...
He is not like aligned with the MAGA Trumpy people, the old guard.
No,
he's very much aligned with DOGE people.
Right. And those people who think that it's the tech billionaires that should be running the world.
Correct.
And the, you know, Trump is just a puppet, and, you know, someone who just was the Trojan horse, kind of got the election because of his populism. But actually, these are the people that want to wield all the power. And, you know, there's a lot of new coverage and reporting coming out about the tech broligarchy, who for years, for decades, have had a new world order view. And the Project 2025 is just part of that, to give them the ultimate control.
You know, there's some crossover there with Project 2025, but, you know, it's interesting to me, like, to listen to Steve Bannon about this, because he's been popping off a lot lately.
And he hates Musk.
He does not like the tech broligarchy at all. And
correct.
And he has been exactly talking about this to his audience, which is a pretty considerable audience. It's not small. And what he's saying is, like, these guys are hijacking our movement. They're taking over for us, and they're not on our side. They don't agree with us on many things. And he points out the things that, you know, they're globalists. They're in bed with the Chinese Communist Party. They'll do business with anybody. And that's not America first. And they're transhumanists. He's talking about the brain chip and all the Neuralink stuff. This is stuff that MAGA has always been against, the technology altering the mind or the body.
And going to Mars.
And going to Mars, all this stuff. There's so much, the H-1B visas, there's so much that they don't align with. And I think Bannon has been, like, actually quite useful in pointing out to, like, the MAGA base, and there's a few others, but he's probably the biggest voice, saying, like, these guys are not our friends. And the question is any of that going to seep through to Trump? Because they keep asking him this, and they asked him again yesterday. And by the way, if you notice on these clips, if you look at the top right corner, they all say Palm Beach, because he's not in D.C. He hasn't been in D.C. in a week.
Why?
He's doing
why is
all
that?
these events in Mar-a-Lago,
right,
at his house. After he plays golf, he does these events. But they keep asking him, and they asked him again last night about, you know, who's really running the show, you know, and you know, he keeps playing it off and saying, like, this doesn't bother him, and the media is not going to divide them and stuff. But it's not just the media; it's his own supporters grumbling.
But could that be the key to the split? Because
I think so. That and
this is what we're looking for, isn't it?
And he keeps getting asked questions about things that Musk did that he doesn't know about, and he keeps getting embarrassed because he doesn't know the answer.
Well, I'm going to show a clip of that in just a moment. And of course, there was that Hannity interview, which was just embarrassing. It was like a couples therapy for a couple who are just already planning their divorce, just going through the motions of trying to be like, okay, let's do our last ditch attempt to make this work. You know, you just made me think of something, Ron. The reason that Trump's in Mar-a-Lago is because Musk is in the White House. He doesn't want to cross Musk.
He wants to, or he's kind of wants to stay away from him because he's had enough of him.
Yeah,
getting under his skin.
We said this last week.
A good point. Like, the only way he could figure out how to get away from Musk is to leave the White House, because Musk won't leave. Musk is like the house guest who's taking over your house, and you have to go somewhere else.
I referred to Musk on a video this week as his live-in boyfriend. But it might be his live-in ex-boyfriend at this rate. All right, listen, we have to take a quick break, but I want to come back and show that clip of Trump being asked a question about the head of Social Security resigning, and he didn't know anything about it. We'll do that next here on Uncovered. Let's be real. 2025's been all about change, whether it's work, personal stuff, or just the daily grind. It can be hard to keep up, but here's the deal. When things get hectic, we don't have to go through it alone. Embrace the power of nature and elevate your everyday with Via. Trusted by over 500,000 happy customers, Via is the Swiss Army knife of wellness, dedicated to harnessing the natural benefits of hemp to create high-quality wellness products. Whether you're looking to improve your sleep, focus, or recovery, Via has something for you. Via is well renowned for their highest quality hemp, sourced from trusted, independently owned American farms. And the best part, Via legally ships to nearly all states in the US in discreet packaging directly to your door with a worry-free guarantee, no medical card required. So, if you're 21 plus, check out our link to Via's website in our description and use code UNCOVERED for 15% off. And if you're new to Via, get a free gift of your choice. After you purchase, they ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Enhance your everyday with Via. Don't you wish you had a secret weapon? Something that always impresses, a recipe maybe, or even a piece of clothing? Well, a secret weapon is a great asset to have in your back pocket. It helps you get ahead in life, and that is how Mack Weldon thinks about clothing. As a secret weapon. Timeless, classic style that's infused with performance fabrics and hidden details. I love my Ace full-zip hooded sweatshirt in a charcoal heather grey. It keeps me warm, makes me feel more confident, because it's quality clothing. Mack Weldon apparel gives you understated good looks for understated confidence. Not flashy, just classic, always in style, and made from the world's most comfortable performance materials. Mack Weldon clothes are designed to fit your style and the demands of modern life. They look like regular clothes, but they feel like the latest in modern comfort. Get timeless looks with modern comfort from Mack Weldon. Go to mackweldon.com and get 25% off your first order of $125 or more with promo code UNCOVERED. That's MACKWELDON.com. Promo code UNCOVERED. And links to our sponsors can be found in the description below. And I'm wearing my Mack Weldon t-shirt right now. Clearly you are not, Ron, but that's fine.
I'm wearing my Wellfleet Oyster Fest t-shirt.
America. Okay, let's jump back into this press conference that Trump gave. It's another of these kind of weird impromptu press conferences that he holds at home. You know, he barely gets dressed to go for these things. And this is the example of him not knowing what is going on back in D.C. Let's take a look.
Your reaction to Michelle King, the head, resigning after the DOGE?
Who resigned?
The head of Social Security.
I don't know. I mean, I resigned or got fired. I think got fired. You know, when you fire somebody, they always resign, and then they say, we resigned. But when you have numbers like that, I think really it's got fired. They have to get fired. Who would keep them? How could you have numbers like this? Now, the big thing is, how many of these people got paid? Were they getting paid? Were they getting paid? How many of them were getting paid Social Security? Because if that's the case, it's a massive fraud. We'll have to call those great Palm Beach police into the situation, right? You guys would figure that out very quickly. But how many of them are being paid? I mean, maybe millions of them, but it's a total fraud. Also, a lot of illegal immigrants are in Social Security that shouldn't be there.
Oh, my God. I mean, he's become a pastiche of himself now. It's like he's been watching himself on TV for too long, and he's like, oh, well, I'll do that old routine, like a stand-up comedian from the 1930s. It's like, you know, just the same old stuff. The Social Security is the largest expense of the federal government annually, next to the military spend.
More people depend on it than anything else.
More people depend on it than anything else, and he's kind of just saying the first thing that comes into his head about it to kind of rubbish it. There's no data, there's no facts. He doesn't know what's going on with Musk and DOGE. He doesn't know who got resigned or who did fire themselves. I mean, come on, Ron. This presidency cannot survive with shit like that going on.
He doesn't know what's going on. He has no idea. And he's like a deer in headlights up there. You could see it. That's why he's trying to change. He can't do what he did in his rallies and just tell stories about Hannibal Lecter because he's getting asked questions, right?
Right, because now he is the president.
That whole shtick is gone, and he's got to actually answer like specific questions from like real reporters, somewhat. And you know, the thing is, this question was about the head of the Social Security Administration resigning, And then he goes into, well, I think I fired her. He has no idea this person was not fired. What happened is when Elon Musk demanded all of the Social Security data from the Social Security administrator, she refused to give it over and was ordered to do it by them and resigned in protest. She is a career employee who had been there for 30 years, served all the way back to George H.W. Bush. She's worked there for. She resigned in protest. So that's what's happening. There was no firing. Nobody was fired. So he lies, and he's, talking to the cops in the back. You're going to investigate.
That was a diversion, of course, because he doesn't know what to say.
Change the subject, right?
And they're friendly to him because they're Palm Beach police who have nothing to do with anything in DC. So total waste of everyone's time to say that. Just play in the audience. Yeah, play into the gallery.
Right. And then he shifts over to like Musk's latest conspiracy about Social Security, that there are more Social Security numbers that have been issued than there are people alive right now. Well, that's no like shocking revelation. Yeah. This is just a matter of like, should maybe Social Security go back and delete numbers or clean numbers after people die? Maybe they should. I don't know. Maybe there's a reason they don't do that. Maybe they want to keep those numbers so they can't be reused again. I have no idea. But the point is, when Musk first discovered that there were more numbers than people, and some of the numbers were assigned to people who would be, if they were still alive, 130, 140 years old. So you see that, and instead of just saying, we need to clean up the rolls and take the dead people off here or put them in a separate bucket or something, he immediately takes it and creates this giant internet conspiracy that he's discovered all these tens of millions of people, dead people, that are collecting Social Security. And he speculated that they could, as much as $4.5 trillion a year is going to dead people or somebody scamming the system, with zero evidence whatsoever, not one shred of evidence.
But this was debunked, wasn't it? It was debunked because Elon Musk's hackers, they didn't know.
It was debunked
right. How the code for these numbers was laid out, and so they presumed that these people were too old.
They're actually saying, like, we're going to get checks in the mail now. From now that Musk has stopped all this fraud of trillions of dollars, we're all going to get like $5,000 checks in the mail from Daddy Trump, who saved us all this money. It was all debunked like within hours, but this is Trump like 3 days later. Long after Musk has even stopped talking about the conspiracy because it was debunked, he's bringing it up in the context of the Social Security administrator being fired, which had also nothing to do with this.
And they're going to position her resigning as her admitting fraud. You see what I mean? Yeah. They'll twist it. Yeah.
Even Musk didn't go there. But yeah, I mean, but yeah, the Trump conspiracy is like, well, that's probably why she resigned, because she's got, and yes, there's a lot of right wingers on social media saying there's people that are going to go to jail. We're going to be locking everybody up as soon as we find out who did this. It's like, dude, show me one payment. Show me one payment that went to somebody who shouldn't get it, and then I'll sit down and talk about your big conspiracy. But as of yet, you have not shown anyone, any dead person. I think they found like 2 or 3 maybe that deceased where money still went out. Maybe they didn't know they died or something. Yeah, it can happen, right? So it's similar to the voting roll situation where they create the conspiracies out of dead people because a lot of states aren't good about purging the
That's right. And it gives them the excuse to then do the purging, as it will with Social Security, because eventually what they'll say to people... This is
not some big conspiracy.
No. And legitimate Social Security recipients who have paid in all their lives will eventually stop getting their checks because there will end up being some kind of claim that there's fraud where there isn't. And they'll do it as a kind of short-term thing. And then, because in my opinion, that's when the revolt will come, when people are not getting their checks.
The other part of this that really nobody talks about is this is scaring the shit out of old people.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, old people are like thinking all our money has been stolen. We're not going to get, and that's why actually Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, who went on Fox and repeated this conspiracy the first day that it happened, then had to go back on the next day to calm people down and assure old people, which is the whole Fox audience is over 65. No offense to our old viewers here. I'm pretty old myself. But the point is, you know, she had to assure them because they were freaking out thinking that all their money is gone.
Let me show that clip.
There's a recklessness involved in this.
Well, that's the problem with wealthy people, is that they don't really consider the consequences of how people live hand to mouth. I was watching Elon Musk's father being interviewed, and he was saying that the kids only ever flew private. They never went to a commercial airport. Like, you know, he drove a Rolls Royce and that was their normal. And so there is absolutely no empathy for how real people live. I want to show this clip of Caroline Leavitt when she went on Fox the first time this is when she kind of scared the bejeez out of people. Here it is.
I want to set the record straight on your show tonight, Sean, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to do so. President Trump has directed Elon Musk and the DOGE team to identify fraud at the Social Security Administration. They haven't dug into the books yet, but they suspect that there are tens of millions of deceased people who are receiving fraudulent Social Security payments. And so their goal in going into the Social Security Administration is to identify three things. Number one, to identify duplicate payments and to end them. Number two, to identify payments that are going to deceased people who are no longer living and should no longer be receiving that money. And number three, to protect the integrity of this system for hardworking Americans who have been paying into it their entire lives. So rest assured, to all of the people watching your show tonight, if you paid into the system honestly, you will continue to receive your Social Security check.
Okay, so was this when she comes back and has to walk it back?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. She had to give a subsequent interview too.
Yeah.
I noticed she also got the obligatory MAGA lip fillers.
That's right. She's looking different, isn't she?
Her lips never looked like that before. Yeah.
There's nothing behind the eyes with these people as well. Maybe she's one of the dead people who's receiving Social Security checks.
She's 27 years old. She doesn't need to be getting a bunch of work done, but you know, whatever. Her husband's 61, so you know, I guess she's got to look good for him. But
it's the Mar-a-Lago face.
It's a Mar-a-Lago face.
Yeah.
So, but going back, I mean, how irresponsible is that to go on national television on a huge show, millions of people watching, and to say with zero evidence whatsoever that Musk has uncovered that millions of dead people have been paid money. I mean, just incredibly, this is the White House press secretary. This is not some podcaster, you know, blowing out conspiracy theories. But that's the problem. I mean, she's a dope. She has no qualifications whatsoever for this job. And so she's in completely over her head. She doesn't understand any of these issues. And she's just spouting off like internet conspiracies from the White House press office.
Which are also from the mouth of the president. I mean, that's the worrying thing, isn't it? Is that they're all doing it. They're all spouting conspiracy theories. And, you know, I've been thinking about her because she is quite good at telling these lies and holding the line.
Yeah.
She's like a perfect, right. She's a perfect, like, you know, Fox News foil. And when she's up at on the podium in the press room, again, I notice she keeps repeating Donald Trump's name, the President of the United States, Donald Trump. She like reiterates it. It's almost as if
Donald J. Trump.
Donald J. Trump. It's almost as if that none of them can really believe that this has happened themselves. So they have to kind of double down on it because no one else is saying it. I mean, interestingly, in my reporting, I'm trying not to refer to him as the president. I'm just calling him Trump. And I'm hearing that a lot from other networks as well.
Me too.
Right. And you know, certainly, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to go down that road because it's a long one. But let me get back to the clips. We've got we're seeing now from all of the surrogates the same kind of crazy stuff, right? I want to talk just for a second about DOGE and Musk, and this goes back to Caroline Levitt as well, because this was another appearance. She's wearing a different face for this particular one, but this is where she's talking about Musk, because there's confusion as to whether or not he actually works for DOGE or whether he's a subcontractor, whether he's working for the president, because they kind of screwed up again in these, the way that they laid this out.
I can give you the backstory behind it.
All right, well, let's take a look, and then you can explain kind of how this plays
Andrew
out.
here, by the way, and thanks for coming back on with us. It seems there's being a lot made of what Elon Musk's role is actually at DOGE. The president has introduced him as the head of DOGE multiple times in interviews, yet there's this affidavit that we've been able to get our hands on here that the press has as well, that it contradicts the White House claim that he's the head of DOGE. This affidavit actually says he doesn't work for DOGE at all. Reading directly from it, it says Musk is not an employee of the U.S. DOGE Service or the U.S. DOGE Service Temporary Organization. That's according to the director of the White House's Office of Administration. So what is his role at DOGE?
Sure, I'm happy to clarify. Elon Musk is a special government employee here at the White House, serving at the direction of the President of the United States, Donald Trump. Elon Musk has been tasked with overseeing DOGE on behalf of the President. And DOGE employees, DOGE folks have been onboarding at respective agencies across our federal bureaucracy as political appointees, just like any other political appointee gets on board with the new administration with the changing of hands, and those individuals are helping the secretaries at all of our agencies that have been nominated and confirmed by President Trump in the United States Senate to cut waste, fraud, and abuse at these respective agencies. So that's the way DOGE has been set up, and that's the way it will continue to operate.
Can you imagine if you and I showed up next week and our faces were like...
I mean, when you first showed the screen, all three of them, it was like, I was looking at them like, are these real people? They look like holograms, like John Roberts over there. I'm not just picking on the ladies here. I mean, John Roberts looks like a freaking cadaver. He looks like he's in an open casket funeral,
right? With a light blue tie on, just to offset the
like
give him some
glowing.
color.
He's like the male version of Carrie Lake. By the way, like almost all the Fox correspondents follow me on social media. Almost all of them do, except Roberts blocks me, he hates me. But looking at him, I mean, the other one too, the host, she looks so they just don't look real. They don't look like real humans.
But this is the Mar-a-Lago face, as you know. I'm obsessed with Alina Hubbers, and then she's got the same, and Lara Trump, she has a whole lot of that going on as well.
Sure, they all do.
It's almost like
we don't get to see much of anymore.
No, I know, but it's like the Trump military. Instead of getting like stripes on your you got
to get your work done.
You got to get you get another filler here and here. That means you've survived 2 weeks of the administration.
Yeah, and you can see them too. You can see how they disappear for a while. Kristi Noem has had tons of work.
That's right.
Done.
Yeah.
You can see how they disappear for like 3 weeks and then they show back up again and they look different. It's like they've gone into hiding after their surgeries or whatever they get. But going back to like the substance of this, because this is kind of important.
Sure.
This is all because of Judge Chutkan. That's the backstory here. Is the federal government employees filed the lawsuit against DOGE saying that Musk exceeded his authority. And so the reason why they didn't want to appoint him to any sort of real cabinet or deputy cabinet position is because you have to go through the background check and you have to go through the confirmation of the Senate and you're subject to the financial reporting requirements and ethics requirements and all that. And Musk didn't want to be subject to any of those rules. So they created this DOGE thing where it's like a separate committee and I'm in charge of DOGE, and they announced it. He named it. Trump said he was running DOGE. He says he's in charge of DOGE. So they file a lawsuit against DOGE, and they go in front of Judge Chutkan 3 days ago, and she starts pinning him down on this. She's like, well, he's not officially like a political appointee. Why is he getting access to all these records, these confidential records, when he's not even technically, what is this DOGE thing? And the lawyer for the Trump administration said, no, he's not. He doesn't run DOGE. He's not in charge of DOGE, like trying to shield him from responsibility on the lawsuit. And Judge Chutkan was like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? She's like, everything I've seen on TV and in the press says he is running DOGE. Now you're telling me he's not running DOGE? So they leave. And then like 3 hours later, they file something with Judge Chutkan saying what she just said, that he is not part of DOGE. They now are naming him a special advisor to the president who oversees DOGE, not in charge of it, not the director, not whatever. He oversees it. So again, it's trying to create this web of no accountability, no transparency, and that Musk talks about transparency all the time.
Yeah.
But he's just trying to shield himself, and so is the administration, from any accountability or responsibility or having to answer to any lawsuits or subpoenas. Look, I mean, the DOGE subcommittee is being run by Marjorie Taylor Greene. They have their first couple of hearings. They didn't even bring him in to testify, because he doesn't want to go under oath on any of this. When he came out with the Social Security conspiracy, the first thing I posted was, and I don't know why every Democrat in Congress wasn't posting it as well, was bring him in front of Congress. This is a big conspiracy. He's uncovered a $4 trillion fraud. Put him under oath and have him present his evidence, because he will never do that. I want him under oath in front of Congress testifying about these conspiracies, because if he lies, then he can be prosecuted. Not that the Trump administration would prosecute him, but if we have a subsequent administration, they could. So this is all of this whole exercise and game is just so Musk can run the country without being accountable to anyone, even the courts.
And of course, he can shut down departments that are investigating him. He encouraged the head of the FAA to resign and kind of called for it, threatened to sue him. He resigned the week before Trump's inauguration. We've seen the effects of what's going on with the aviation industry here. It's terrifying.
The regulators at NIH that was investigating his Neuralink chip.
Correct.
Fired.
Correct. And so the more investigation you do into the tally of which departments are being culled, and then those departments that were investigating his various businesses. SpaceX was a huge one. When the rocket exploded, there was debris in the Bahamas, and that effectively was worth a $600 million fine, and he didn't want to pay that. And there's so much history. There is so much corruption. And so this is him through the back door claiming that he's saving the country money. And people are blindly going, yeah, you're saving us money. They're not saving a dime in comparison to the money that is being wasted.
Let me just give you like two examples. They put out one thing on their fact sheet where he put out his little thing about how much he's saving money.
Yeah.
One was $8 billion he claimed he saved.
Right.
That it was $8 million, the entire budget. Another thing he claimed he saved was money that was going to Jimmy Carter. But that money was ended when he died. It was like security and all the different things that you spend on an ex-president, probably his medical care, all that kind of stuff. His library, maybe, I don't know. But the point is, they listed that as one of the DOGE cuts when that came out of the budget when Carter died, because he died. So
and a lot of it,
an example,
a lot of it is also to put this ideology, this far right nationalist ideology of anti-diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility into force without having to go through Congress. So by claiming, as they did with the FAA,
departments,
right?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that they did is they fired every DEI employee, like the human resource people.
Yes.
They fired all of them. So once those people are gone, then that's one way of getting rid of the program, right? Yeah. But then the next phase 2 was then you're looking for anyone who may have been hired by those people, and firing them. So yeah, it's they're on that phase right now. Yeah. And by the way, this is tip of the iceberg. They fired DEI people, they fired probationary employees, et cetera, things that they don't think are necessary. but they're going to cut much deeper into the bone here in the next round because they're not done firing people, and they got rid of all the people who took the buyout. Okay, so there was a big chunk of those people.
That's right. It was like 10,000.
They're not stopping here.
No.
More are coming. More federal employees will be fired.
And again, if you look into Project 2025's pages and also the views of these tech oligarchs, they don't want a federal government. They want self-governance, and their views cut really deep in this stuff. And they have been given access. They've been given the keys to actually do it, and with no oversight. I mean, Caroline Levitt was like, well, we've been very transparent. Elon Musk is posting everything that he's doing on the DOGE website. Oh, okay, well, that's fine. You know, not a single third party is allowed in to kind of oversee any of this stuff. It reminds me of like that poor weapons inspector, Hans Blix, when he was like sent in to find weapons of mass destruction. You know, we are really being sold down the river here, and it's the American people that are going to end up suffering and paying the ultimate price.
Yeah, they're not transparent at all. I mean, as soon as somebody even just named 6 of his employees, they threatened to prosecute the reporter who wrote the story and suspended that reporter as well. I mean, they're the opposite of transparency.
Well, it's a totalitarian authority. That's basically what we're dealing with. And because Musk is, you know, he's like a dude or plays this kind of dude role, you know, people struggle to compare it to kind of Nazi movement.
Yeah.
Because the Nazis, you know, kind of wore leather and armbands and caps.
He smiles more than the Nazis, right?
Because he smiled, right. And this is a problem because it is a distraction. But actually, you know, he's in every way. I mean, aside from him doing the kind of Hitler salute, how much more evidence do you need? I mean, like, we really need to join the dots here. I mean, he's supporting the Nazi party in Germany and trying to get them elected. And just because, you know, we're not hearing that language here yet doesn't mean that that's not who he is.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a frightening prospect. I mean, I've asked myself often, it's like, I kind of want Trump back in charge. You know, I mean, it's kind of like, as bad as Trump is, like, Musk is worse. I mean, if you had to like force me to choose, like, one of them has to leave the government and the other one
that is not a choice anybody
should make. It's a hard choice.
But because the problem is that, you know, Trump, as we have discussed so many times,
is like less competent and less focused.
He's an idiot, right? He's an idiot.
Right,
but you know, Musk has this kind of world order view, and that is what is so very dangerous, because that is what will lead to major conflict and the reorganization of the world. And, you know, what's so sad really is that the world was doing pretty well when Joe Biden was president. Like, you know, we hadn't had any mainland conflict. We you know, people were starting the peace deal, and the hostage transfer had already started in
Canadians
Gaza.
Weren't booing the national anthem.
Exactly. And so the Kennedy Center's honors was operating as normal. But unfortunately, you know, these people have caused so much trauma and drama. And if it was just isolated to the United States, okay, then fine, we fight our own battles. But the fact that it has lit the touch paper right across Europe it's very, very sad, because, you know, these people should never have been allowed to get even close to the seat of power. And now we're seeing the effect. I want to talk about Mayor Eric Adams. It's a whole story. But we have to take another quick break. We'll do that next here on Uncovered. Protect your family by securing their future with life insurance from Policy Genius. Policy Genius makes finding and buying life insurance simple and ensures your loved ones have a financial safety net they can use to cover debts and routine expenses, or even invest that money to earn interest over time. With Policy Genius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million worth of coverage. Some options are 100% online and let you avoid unnecessary medical exams. Compare quotes from America's top insurers side by side for free with no hidden fees. Their licensed support team helps you get what you need fast so you can get on with your life. They answer questions, handle paperwork, and advocate for you throughout the process. Life insurance is a form of financial planning, and Policy Genius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace. Join thousands of happy Policy Genius customers who left 5-star reviews on Google and Trustpilot. Secure your family's tomorrow so you can have peace of mind today. Head to policygenius.com/uncovered or click the link in the description below to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/uncovered. Welcome back. So, Ron, Mayor Eric Adams, as we know, there's an awful lot of evidence against Eric Adams in his case, right, out of New York, and yet the Republicans have decided to effectively pardon him, and we saw this kind of resignation of prosecutors. Just give us a bit of a backstory before I show the clip of Alina Harbour claiming that Eric Adams is an innocent man.
So, right after Trump got elected, Eric Adams was down at Mar-a-Lago, because he wanted a pardon. He was under indictment for soliciting bribes. And there was another indictment coming. He was about to get hit with new charges. So he had a bunch of charges already, and there was new ones coming. So he did two things. He hired Elon Musk's lawyer.
Wow.
Okay, there you go. So he hired Elon Musk's personal attorney, and he started going down to Mar-a-Lago, kissing the ring, getting in Trump's ear, getting in Musk's ear. And, he's the head of New York City. It's the biggest city in the country, right? Financial sector. It's something that's been controlled by Democrats for 200 years.
And it's Trump's hometown, of course. So Trump, because of his buildings,
Trump's hometown, correct,
feels an affinity with the city.
So you could see, for them, the opportunity to own, basically to take over the mayor of New York City, and it's like they not only are taking over the country, they can control New York City as well, which is a Democratic stronghold. And how they can do it is by leveraging these charges. So look, I'm not speculating here. All of this was in writing, in memos. It was in the resignation letter of the prosecutors who are handling the case, both of whom are conservative Republicans, the prosecutors who resigned in protest. One clerked for Kavanaugh, the other clerked for Scalia. The one guy won 2 Bronze Stars in Iraq. They're Republican conservatives, right? And they resigned in protest because they said this deal is shady. So this deal was made by Trump's criminal defense attorney, Emil Bove, who's now deputy DOJ. Trump brings him in to be the deputy DOJ, deputy attorney general, and he negotiates this deal. So the problem is they couldn't, normally when you drop an indictment, you have an indictment, you're going to drop it. You have to put your reasons, you have to state your legal basis for doing that. That's DOJ policy. And you put that in writing in a memo, and that becomes public record at some point. So the problem is they had no legal basis to drop the charges whatsoever. They couldn't say this witness refused to testify, this witness died, or something fell apart. They have none of that. So, or some new witnesses have come forward to prove that the person is innocent. No, they have none of that. So what did they come up with? They just nakedly said in their own memo, we need Eric Adams to help with deportations. And if has this trial, he's going to be stuck in court, and he's not going to have time to help us with this. And he's a very important member of our deportation team because there's so many migrants in New York City. So they actually put that in, but that has never happened before. And there was a court hearing on it today where actually today in front of the judge, where it went in front of the judge because it's not formally dismissed yet. DOJ has just filed the motion to dismiss it, but there's really not much a judge can do other than ask some questions about it, which happened today where Bove was in court. And he said, has the Department of Justice ever dropped charges based on a political consideration? Like, we need this guy in office to do this stuff for us, so we're dropping criminal charges against him. And Bove said, no, there never has. As far as I know, this has never happened. So, but he's just like, but Judge, you have no say. He's like, maybe you don't like it. Maybe this has never happened before, but tough shit. This is what we're doing, and there's nothing you can do to stop us. So that's what happened today.
So Alina Harbour goes on Fox News and tries to
say he's innocent.
Claim that this guy is innocent.
He's innocent, right?
Let's take a look.
This man was prosecuted because he was anti-sanctuary city policies. He wanted New York to be safe. He said, I'm going to protect the people of New York. That is the job I was given. And then all of a sudden, wow, he's prosecuted under charges.
Wow. Yes.
He's prosecuted by someone who worked for Scalia and someone who worked for Kavanaugh because he's against sanctuary cities. That's why these two Republicans prosecuted Eric Adams. Not the foreign bribes, not the foreign money that he solicited bribe. No, not because of that. Because Eric Adams said he's doesn't like sanctuary cities or something. Which by the way, Eric Adams always was for sanctuary cities before.
Yeah,
it's just he figured out how to use this to get his charges dropped. It's corrupt. It's disgusting. I think something like 9 or 10 career federal prosecutors ended up resigning in protest over this. But look, there's going to be a lot more situations like this. He's pretty much dropped the only Republican that I can think of, like that he hasn't dropped, Trump supporting Republican that he hasn't dropped charges on or pardoned, is Joe Exotic. You know, the Tiger King.
Who's
I think he's
actually,
like the only one.
Yeah,
who hasn't been pardoned yet, but I think that's probably coming.
I'm sure, in return for a tiger skin rug or something that's going to go on the floor of the Mar-a-Lago ballroom. Tom Homan is one of Trump's henchmen, as we know. He's the border czar. They gave him that name, of course, because they gave that fake name to Kamala Harris when she was vice president, and they wanted to show an equivalence, even though she was never the border czar. But that's another kind of meta story for another day. So, of course, Tom Homan's kind of come out and he's like, well, if Eric Adams, because I think they appeared together on a show, if Eric Adams doesn't come through with all of these immigrants that he's promised, then he's going to be, he's going to be back in front of a judge, which again is just more propaganda to kind of give the impression that they're doing something for the people when they're not. But let's look at Tom Homan talking about AOC, because this has become a serious bone of contention and very serious. He is effectively saying that because Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez kind of maybe had advised her constituents that there were going to be raids, ICE raids.
He did a TikTok. Yeah.
That she is tipping off the immigrants or the asylum seekers to protect them from deportation. Let's take a look on what he had to say.
I'm sure a free speech argument can be made. Okay, she has every right to say anything she wants. When does it cross a line into aiding and abetting lawbreaking? Would it have to have direct involvement by her in helping people to evade ICE?
That's exactly the question I posed to the Deputy Attorney General. I asked him to look into it. I says, I know through my career, someone steps in front of you, in between you and the person you're arresting or repeating. Yeah, that's a violation. But at what point do you cross the line on saying you're educating people versus you're teaching them how to evade ICE arrest? So I've asked that question to the Department of Justice for clear guidance so I can share that with the officers of ICE. So we're looking for that clear direction so we can start taking action on people that want to evade, who want to help educate these people to evade ICE. So hopefully any day now we get that guidance sent out to the field.
Can I just say that he reminds me of the Frankenstein in Young Frankenstein, the Mel Brooks movie, who was putting on the Ritz. That's
he's just an old dirty cop is what he is,
Yeah.
So
an oaf.
This hits a little I mean, I'm familiar with this situation because I was a criminal defense lawyer for over 20 years. And the question is like, people would ask me all the time, like, what should I do if I get pulled over for a DUI? You know, should I take the breathalyzer or what? And you know, you have to be somewhat careful as a lawyer when you're, because in other words, I can't, as a criminal lawyer, like make a commercial and tell people don't ever take a breathalyzer. That would not be ethical because it's the law that you're supposed to take it. Now you can refuse it, but there's consequences. But I, as an attorney, can't tell people to violate the law since that's a violation of the law. So this is what he's alluding to. What she did is she made a TikTok video that she put out about home searches. And what she said, you know, because they're banging on a lot of doors of American citizens because they heard that some migrant might be in there, maybe a relative, maybe an aunt, whatever. So they're banging on random doors when they go out. They fan out hundreds of ICE agents and they do these raids in these cities. So what she's saying is, like, if they bang on your door, you don't have to let them in. You don't have to let them search your house. You have rights. You can say, no, you're not coming in unless you have a warrant. Come back, get a warrant. So that's all she did, is she did not cross any lines. She told people what their rights are under the Constitution. And, you know, this is infuriating. You know, Homan's also threatened, by the way, to prosecute and arrest reporters and news media who publicized raids, who mentioned that a raid is about to happen. He's also claims that he has tracked down some FBI agent who apparently leaked raids that he's going to go after. And now he's talking about going after a member of Congress for just telling people what their rights are. And by the way, he said that he has been talking to DOJ at the highest levels, probably Beauvais, the same guy, about whether they can charge her, whether they can arrest her for a federal crime. And my response to that was, please, Democrats really need something right now to like galvanize and energize them and get the energy going. Arresting AOC for telling people what their rights are, man, do us a favor, you know. And she's dared him too. She's like, go ahead, you know.
She's like, do your worst.
I mean, that would be so helpful to Democrats if he did that, which is probably why he won't do it.
I mean, a lot of this is what AOC said, is that they're cowards at the end of the day. And a lot of these threats are empty, but they are designed to put fear into people.
Intimidate. Yeah.
And people are scared. Genuinely, people are scared. And, you know, we are living under a regime that is, you know, it's giving us empathy for, you know, Europeans in the 1930s that we never ever thought that we would feel living here. And I think that this is something that, I mean, I've spoke about you as a history teacher in the past, but I think it's very relevant. The stuff that we've only really studied in textbooks, there is now a level of empathy that people are feeling here. Those of us who are empaths, but also those illegal migrants or asylum seekers who themselves are having to experience something from the land of the free, the place, the greatest country in the world, this heavily branded marketing exercise that is the United States, claiming that it is the greatest country, and yet we are having to now live through what is one of the darkest periods in modern history.
And part of the reason why they're crossing all these ethical lines, whether it's Eric Adams or threatening reporters or threatening AOC, is because the deportation numbers are not good. They're much lower than they promised. They're much lower than they expected. They're not going to come anywhere close to rounding up the number of people that they promised and they said that they were going to. And remember, Biden deported about 1 million people a year. So they're behind that already.
Yeah.
So that is part of it, is that Trump is in Homan's ear because Trump wants those numbers every day. And the numbers aren't
it's embarrassing.
And exactly. And he promised, this is what his base wants more than anything in the world, is to see millions and millions of migrants with tears streaming down their face as they're being loaded into planes. That's what his base wants. And they're not getting that show in big numbers And so that's why Homan is getting so desperate and deranged.
Talk to me about Louis DeJoy, because this is an interesting turn of events, isn't it? Louis DeJoy was put in by Trump to be the Postmaster General during his first term, and people thought that he was in the tank for Trump and that he was potentially taking mail-in votes and was redirecting them or not delivering them, or he was removing sorting machines, and there was photographs of machines in dumpsters behind post offices.
Me some bad flashbacks,
right?
I forgot about all that stuff.
Right, it was a whole thing, but here we are now, 4-5 years later, probably 6 years later, and people were complaining, of course, that why wasn't Joe Biden firing Louis DeJoy? Because the USPS has never been, at the top of its game, lack of investment and everything else. But he couldn't because there's a committee that we learned that has to, agree to fire him. Anyway, he has been resigned now by Donald Trump. So was he pushed, or did he just decide enough was enough?
Yeah, we don't know all the facts yet. Maybe we will at some point. But look, he was appointed to serve a 10-year term, and the idea about this and so many of these other federal appointments are they're not supposed to be partisan. They're not supposed to change with every president. You're supposed to have some continuity here in the federal government, where everything doesn't change every 4 years. And this is one of those positions. We don't want the person overseeing the post office to be shuttled in and out every other year. And so, but Trump appointed DeJoy to a 10-year term right in the middle of the 2020 election during COVID, when so much of the balloting was being done by mail. So yes, naturally, I certainly did too, we're pumping out conspiracy theories on Louis DeJoy that he was going to sabotage the election for the Democrats. He was going to focus on Democratic areas. It seemed like he tried to do some stuff, but there was such a backlash that I don't think he really did do much to thwart. There's so many other career employees that were looking over his shoulder that I don't think he really was able to meddle as much as he wanted. And maybe Trump blames him for that. So maybe that could be the reason why he's now fired he supposedly resigned, right? But I don't know that I'm buying, I want to spend more time with my family with Louis DeJoy. It doesn't seem like he has much of a life. And he seemed like he really loved being Postmaster General. So it could be that Trump came back in and said, I want you out because you didn't come through for me in 2020 on these mail-in ballots. It could also be he had a congressional hearing 2 weeks ago where they were just screaming at him.
That's right. He put his hands
and he covered
over his ears. Yeah.
Republicans too. And he was giving shit back to him. So it could be that meltdown caused him to just say, you know what, I don't need this. He's got lots of cash.
Yeah.
He owned a trucking company before.
That's right. He was a businessman, wasn't he?
He was a big money guy.
Yeah.
Big Trump donor. So we don't really know the whole story. I speculated that, Clay Higgins went after him about having an illegal mailbox this week and put out a crazy video. And I thought, well, maybe Clay took him out. Who knows?
Let's take a look at Clay Higgins with his crazy video.
Take a look at my mailbox here. Look at that. What's the problem? See the flag? We've lived here for 5 years. Pay our bills, pay our taxes. But I get home. It's late. Sunday night. I haven't been home much, as I said, a couple months. Got a notice from the post office. They're not going to deliver my mail anymore. Because my box don't have a door. See there? It's hard to see because of shadow, but there's no door there. But this is a stout mailbox, man. This is the reason the United States Post Office is going to say they're not going to deliver mail to a citizen. I got a pretty nice mailbox. If they're doing this to me on my street in Lafayette, what are they doing to country folk? I grew up in the country, and let me say, this is the nicest mailbox I've ever had. So if they're gonna not deliver mail to this mailbox, what are they doing to country folk?
I mean, I was like, you don't even know. My sides hurt. Like I was for like 45 minutes completely incapacitated watching that. I couldn't even, I was laughing so hysterically. Tears are coming down my face. Like, and that's by the way, for our foreign viewers, that's a member of Congress right there. That's a member of Congress. And that's who I think when I watch that, I think about like Europeans watching that going, this is a very senior elected official in the United States government putting out a video at like midnight complaining that they won't deliver mail because he doesn't have a door. And as it turns out, he wasn't even holding up because his neighbor messaged me, and that wasn't even a notice from the post office. It was a notice from their homeowners association because the rules that require them to have a door. So, but you know what? Maybe that video intimidated Louis DeJoy because he resigned 2 days after Clay put that out. So
you never know. Okay, we only have a few minutes left, but I've got a couple of things I want to crowbar in. Tell me about Ashley St. Clair, because we're hearing that Elon Musk has yet again fathered another child. This came as a bit of a shock to nobody. And she posted, it's interesting that Elon is responding to this clearly in jest screenshot that was discussed with his team months ago in a documented call. Now he decides to respond to it publicly from an account that posted underage photos of me as if he wasn't asking me to have more children last week. I would like to take this offline for our child's sake and have been attempting to for weeks. Just fill us in for those who don't really understand. I mean, does he have 11 kids?
No, he has 13.
Oh, he has 13.
Yeah,
okay.
13, yeah. So Ashley is a right-wing MAGA influencer who I've spoken to a few times, and she is pretty popular, has a pretty big following. She's pretty smart. She's bright. I mean, she's not like one of these complete idiots like so many of them are. She actually has some good insights. She's said a lot of terrible things too, but she's not one of the worst of the worst. But it was everybody kind of knew that they were hooking up. I mean, people in the know, I know people who knew her who said she's hooking up with Elon Musk. This was months ago. So I kind of knew about all these rumors. I didn't know she was pregnant, but so it turns out she had his baby like 5 months ago. But, at first I was just like, I'm not going to touch this. I know her. And she did message me when this happened after the fact because she didn't like something I posted so about it. But my original plan was not to comment on it. But then when I saw them fighting, because what happened is a guy named Milo Yiannopoulos, who was Marjorie Taylor Greene's former legislative aide, posted old screenshots showing that Ashley apparently plotted to hook up with Musk, that she wanted to track him down, wanted to have his baby, right? Like years ago, she was talking about it. And obviously, I'm not going to accuse her of being a gold digger or anything, but obviously, if you have the baby of the richest man in the world, you are set for life. You will never work another day in your life as soon as you get that child support rolling in, right? So I'm not saying that was her motive, but that's the result. And so she has the kid, but she had the kid right before the election. And Musk refused to sign the birth certificate, forced her not to tell anybody. Obviously, I'm sure she probably wanted to tell everyone. I'm the mother of Musk's child, right? But he forced her not to tell anyone because he was trying to cover it up. So it finally all came out. I don't know if a reporter found out or whatever, but it finally came out. But the funny part is like, Musk responded to that story by Milo by saying, wow, whoa, whoa, she really planned this whole thing? I thought she really liked me. And then that is Ashley's kind of response to him saying like, why won't you talk to me? Is apparently what has come out is her and her attorneys or representatives or publicists or whatever. You get pregnant with Musk's kid, you hire a publicist. Then, I've apparently been trying to get in contact with him, most likely to negotiate child support is I'm going to speculate. That's probably first on the list of things. and Musk is ghosting her, like won't call her back, won't talk to her, unfollowed her on social media. So this is quite a mess, but it goes to the character of this man. This man is a hollow, he drags that kid around the human shield.
Yeah.
He acts like he's father of the year. Meanwhile, he has nothing to do with any of his other kids. And you see how he's treating the mother of his 13th child.
I was reading about this kind of tech oligarch obsession with eugenics and their genes, and the idea that they want to procreate because they believe that their seed is sacred, and that by putting their DNA out into the world, it will kind of, it will assist with their takeover or something. Have you read about that stuff?
Well, many of his kids were IVF kids. They were not from sexual activity. Now, Ashley has not said how she got pregnant, but yeah, sure. Musk is a big part of that movement.
Yeah.
About, I think if he didn't have to pay child support or have any consequences, he'd donate his sperm pretty much to anybody. But he's got to worry about the financial part of it. But yeah, that's big with their movement is to do all that. Sure.
So strange. Okay, listen, we have to finish.
Well, part of it is racial,
yes,
because they say that white people aren't having enough babies, and they want to repopulate the world with white babies.
Yeah. It's funny because so much of my reporting seems to kind of come back to racism and white supremacy. And I know the US media doesn't really care to talk about that or report that stuff, but time and time again it comes up with Trump, with Musk, with Peter Thiel, with any of these people. Victor Hanson Davis or whatever his name is a kind of proponent of this as well. This idea that the white man should be all powerful in the United States, and so much of this movement and Project 2025 goes back to this idea of men being the landowners and the ones who have all of the control, and women being subservient and birthing dozens of children for these men. It really is the Handmaid's Tale personified, and that's where we're at now. Okay, Ron, thank you. Always a pleasure. Testing times, but it's always good to have these chats. You can read more of Ron at Midas Plus, the Midas Touch news service that we have on Substack. You can catch me on Substack as well, the Anthony Davis, and of course on 5 Minute News. And I'll be back on Sunday with the Weekend Show. And Ron and I will be back on Wednesday next week to do it all again. Thanks a lot, Ron.
All right. See you next week.